Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the District of Squamish regular business meeting for Tuesday, October 19th. We are meeting tonight on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. Council, a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councilor Ray, second by Councilor Herford. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any notice motion, Council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4. We have a proclamation request today from Brenda Triance.
Just trying there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Elliott and council members and any staff. I wanted to present today on behalf of myself and the Squamish Senior Society. Wish to request the recognition of an annual Seniors Day in Squamish. I'll start now with what I have here. Sorry. On October 1st in 2020, it was the 30th anniversary of the United Nations celebration of International Day for Older Persons. In October 2011, the Canadian government proclaimed October 1st, the date of the National Seniors Day in Canada. And in 2018, British Columbia proclaimed October 1st BC Seniors Day. Numerous levels of government around the world have proclaimed Seniors Day in recognition of all that seniors have and are continuing to contribute to society. Internationally, nationally, provincially, and locally, seniors have supported and contributed in every aspect of life and well-being worldwide. They have raised families, prepared them to survive and thrive according to their community and culture as best possible. They continue to do so through their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Seniors have supported their communities through their work, professions, volunteerism, participation in clubs, science, religion, sports, local activities, and play. All seniors have added to the evolution of Canadian culture into its current form simply by living it. Being versed in giving their opinions at town halls, information meetings, referendums, online forums, and importantly, by voting. By speaking out when they believe something is wrong, supporting issues they believe in, passing on traditions and family histories and lessons learned. By teaching respect and the difference between right and wrong to all they come in contact with. Seniors are making a stand on issues of conservation, land, oceans and rivers, trees and related habitat. They're speaking out against animal cruelty, use of plastics, recycling, and methods of farming practices. Joining their voices with adults and children throughout the world, they are making a difference. Many have fought for our way of life and the protection of all in times of strife and world conflict. They've lived it and they've made sacrifices. Many seniors contribute to the world in time of disaster, sickness, and poverty through action and financial help. Seniors have helped build our economy in the many facets of living their lives, buying houses, raising and educating their young, participation in clubs, paying all taxes and school taxes, donating to charities, churches, foundations, science, and medicine. Many have and continue to fill volunteer positions, building and protecting healthy families and neighborhoods. Our current seniors in Canada have paid the most into our Canadian pension plan than any other seniors before them. We've contributed. Many fought for strong unions so that Canadians could earn good wages and support their families. Through whatever walk of life each senior has lived, all have tried their best in their way to lead good lives, nurturing and supporting others, family, friends, neighbors, and strangers, especially in times of need. In 2013, 15% of Canadians will be seniors. By 2030, it is estimated that we will make up 23% of Canada's peoples. Seniors matter. Their contributions, support, expertise, and knowledge have earned recognition internationally, nationally, and provincially, and should be recognized annually by all the people of Squamish, for their highest contribution has been to their local community. By celebrating Squamish Seniors Day, we celebrate every person who has and is playing a part in making Squamish what it is. And everyone in Squamish is going to be on their way to being recognized on Squamish Seniors Day. And that is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much for starting us off with such a positive message. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mary Elliott. This is very timely. Congratulations to the Squamish seniors in bringing this forward to us. I wasn't aware of Seniors Day and what senior governments have already done. Just considering seniors as community volunteers here in Squamish, environmental and conservation groups, cultural arts and heritage groups, service clubs, many recreation groups, we wouldn't have them without the seniors' contribution. They literally run them. With our commuting population, we are really very dependent on seniors to make these volunteer contributions. So good on Ms. Triance for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Is there a recommendation or?
There's a proclamation request. I'll just check with the rest of the council to see if there's any other comments. Councillor Pettingill?
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate this coming forward. I did want to take a tiny bit of a detour. I recently attended the Council of Senior Citizens Organizations conference and got to hear Attorney General David Eby speak. And he focused on housing and affordability issues for seniors. And I just want to touch on some of the things that the province is doing. And I think that's relevant in terms of, as we're thinking about why seniors are important to our community, one of the reasons to do that is to not lose sight of some of the challenges that seniors face. And I think a lot of these are more provincial responsibilities, but we as a municipality have a role to play. And I think it's important that these issues are top of mind as well. So I'd just like to, if I can, share a few of the things from Minister Eby. One of the things he talked about is that their government is moving away from the practice of combining seniors housing with those who have complex needs. They've decided that's not a great model. They are trying to provide more funding for affordable seniors rental housing. BC Housing is looking to get more involved in the development process for seniors housing so that, especially in cases where local developers and not-for-profits are when they're not taking this on. He pointed out that housing for seniors and others that the government committed to and funded 3 to 4 years ago is just coming online now. The mayor reminded me that that's what we're seeing in Squamish with the West Winds project. And so it's just sort of eye-opening, I guess, how long some of these things take, but we are lucky that they're starting to come. The government is beginning engagement on changes to the building code. So right now, BC Housing has high standards for accessibility, but the government wants to bring that into the building code so all developments are accessible for everyone, in particular seniors. They are looking to provide support for seniors who want to rent part of their home when it's become too large for them, but they want to stay in their home, and they recognize there's a whole bunch of challenges with being a landlord and this whole circumstance. So they're looking to do a lot more work there to engage with seniors. And I guess wrapping this all up, his comment is that the province is looking to do a whole lot more engagement with seniors as they work through these things. So I just, again, a bit of a tangent, but I think relevant to why we need to be paying attention to seniors, what some of the needs are, and very much appreciate the resolution.
Councillor Anderson?
I'm happy to move that the request to proclaim a Squamish Seniors Day. The suggestion is October 1st. I'm happy to include that in the motion as well, so that October 1st will be proclaimed as Squamish Seniors Day.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor French. Go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Chair. So this proclamation acknowledges those who taught our children, provided us with medical care, operated the heavy equipment used to build our infrastructure, swung the hammers to build our homes, cared for our children, and so much more in building our community. It acknowledges those who chose to make Squamish their home after their work life was done, whether they worked here or somewhere else. And this proclamation really is a thank you to the pioneers who did, and in many cases, continue to do the work to build Squamish. Thank you.
It's a race.
Thank you. I guess as the token senior here, I should support this resolution. Be a little odd if I didn't. And thank my fellow councillors for their kind comments, and ask them to remember that the next time we disagree on an issue. But thank Mr. Triance and Councillor Anderson and Councillor Pettengill and other councillors for their comments. For a group of people who have provided a significant benefit to our community, still have a lot to offer, some have various issues that have to be dealt with. And so I think recognizing that is most appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and bringing this motion forward to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, consideration of unscheduled public attendance. So this is anyone in the public who feels they have an issue that they would like to put on the agenda this evening that cannot wait for 2 weeks. Who am I looking at? Okay, Terry, okay. All right, so we do have timed items this evening. So we're on to item 7. First up is Development Variance Permit for 41343 Horizon Drive. Mr. Dan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, Development and Subdivision Coordinator with Community Planning. I'm here tonight to present Development Variance Permit number 4 at 41343 Horizon Drive, which is requesting a reduction in the front setback. At the February 19th, 2019 regular council meeting, council approved Development Variance Permit number 141, which reduced the front setback from 7.62 meters to 6 meters for the subject property. Development variance permits expire after 2 years if construction has not started. Development variance permit number 141 has expired. Development variance permit number 4, which is being presented this evening, is requesting the same front setback variance that was approved by council in 2019. Subject property is located at 41343 Horizon Drive in the Sky Ridge subdivision. The subject property is zoned CD83. Properties to the west are zoned RS1. DVP number 4 proposes to vary the front yard setback from 7.62 meters to 6 meters. The variance is requested to facilitate construction of a single unit dwelling. The lot is located on steep terrain, and the intention behind the variance request is to move the home closer to Horizon Drive to avoid the steep drop at the rear of the property and the need for large retaining structures. The subject property fronts Horizon Drive, which is a low traffic strata road at the northern end of the Sky Ridge development. 6 meter front setback will still allow for a driveway that could serve as surface parking. Staff have requested that the property owner enter into a restrictive covenant that will secure that any equipment for the heating of the building or hot water system will use a renewable energy source, that no gas fireplaces will be provided in the dwelling, that pre-wiring for electric vehicle charging in the garage will be provided, and that the building will meet step 5 of the BC Energy Step Code, 1 step higher than is currently required. Staff support DVP number 4, as a 6 meter front yard will still allow for parking in front of the home. It will move the building away from the steep slopes at the rear of the property, and the variance contains the same request that was approved in 2019. Legislated and district processes for engagement were followed for this application. The development proposal sign was installed on the subject property, and the project was advertised on the online development showcase. Variance notifications were sent to properties within 100 meters of the subject property, and no comments have been received today. Staff recommend the council issue Development Variance Permit number 4, subject to the proponent committing to that any equipment integral for the heating of the building or hot water system at 41343 Horizon Drive will use a renewable energy source, that no gas fireplaces will be provided, that pre-wiring for electric vehicle charging will be provided in the garage, and that the building will meet step 5 of the BC Energy Step Code. That concludes my presentation. I now welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. So council, we do have an opportunity for the proponent and the public to speak, but I will ask you if you have any clarifying questions first. Council Pettengill.
By not providing gas fireplaces, does that mean there will not be gas lines run to the house?
Through the mayor, that there potentially could be gas running to the house for a stove. The homeowner has indicated their desire to still maintain this. However, they have also noted that they're going to be providing a solar roof system that will be adding back to the hydro grid, air to water heat pump for in-floor heating. They will have an electric furnace with electric backup only, and they're going to be exceeding the step code requirement by going to BC step code. So, answer the question, yes, there may still be a gas line. However, it won't be for the heating or heating.
Any other questions? All right, I have a short statement that I have to read here. The proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard electronically, on telephone, or from your computer, or in person from council chambers at Municipal Hall with respect to the proposed variances to District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200/2011. There is one proposed variance to the zoning bylaw as outlined in the staff report, and this is to vary the front setback from 7.62 meters to 6 meters. Please note that limited in-person participation is available from council chambers at Municipal Hall, and if you're participating in person, please raise your hand to speak. Details to participate on the telephone or on the WebEx platform are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. And these are also included on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, you raise your hand if you're on the telephone by dialing *3, or if you're on WebEx, you open the participant panel and click on the hand icon. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt over telephone or a dialog box on WebEx. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood. Please note that speakers will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. And if you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat function to send the host a message or email hearing@squamish.ca. So I will first check with anyone in council chambers. Is there anyone that wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none, I'll go to our moderator. Again, that's *3 if you're on the phone, or a participant panel on WebEx, raise your hand with the hand icon. Ms. Murray, is there anybody?
Nobody wishes to speak.
Thank you. There are no speakers online at this time. So council, I will come back to you. See if there's any more questions or comments. Seeing none, Ms. Murray, I'll just check with you again. Is there anyone online?
No one online there, Elliot.
Thank you. Council, there is a staff recommendation in front of us. Council Herford?
I just had a quick question. When we first contemplated this, that street, I believe it was the lots on that side weren't built out, but we gave the variance to all the lots. Have they been built out and took advantage of the variance that was provided? Because it was sort of a conceptual piece at the time that we first discussed it.
Through the mayor, 2 of the lots have been built out. One is under construction and one is completed. It's that Skyfall house. I'm not sure. Person at Zero House in Squamish, I believe. So that one did take advantage of that setback. My apologies. Two of the lots have taken advantage of the variance, and the remaining have not.
Go ahead, Councilor Pattonville.
So I recognize this isn't under the zoning particular new incentives we've done, but those incentives, they are for the full build out rather than the diminished lot coverage. That is dependent on no fossil infrastructure in the buildings for residential.
Through the mayor, I might get some clarification. You're speaking to the new low carbon energy incentives. I believe those don't come into effect until the end of this year. And that is based, my understanding, and I am not super well versed in it, is that it is based on a GHGI calculation that you would have your energy advisor complete. So I'm not sure whether or not that would allow for some fossil fuels to be used or not. It would be up to the energy advisor working on the project to confirm that. That is my understanding. And maybe I'll let my director, Jonas, add to that if he has anything to add.
Nope, that's my understanding as well.
Okay, let's go back to Ms. Murray. Any further hands? Further hands? Any hands?
No hands, Mayor.
Okay. There is a recommendation from staff. Councilor Rice,
I'll move the recommendation.
Councilor Rice, Councilor Hurd, you're seconding that? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Rice.
Thank you. I vaguely recall this actually from a few years ago. And this is an example, I think, of where the variance process is appropriate, where we have lots, and there are several around the community, of course, where we have lots that have special challenges for building. And so I think it is appropriate to grant the variance in this case. I acknowledge that this particular homeowner has gone above and beyond in some of the energy saving concessions that they've made. And so I am happy to support this. I also, when I think of this and the last time it came before us, don't think there is any kind of significant impact to the neighborhood, if at all. So I think this is appropriate. And I'll support the resolution.
Councilor Hurd?
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion as well. As Councilor Race stated, this is a unique lot, and I believe the neighborhood impacts of the variance are negligible. And I also appreciate that the first time we saw this, it was conceptual and looking at a bare lot. It's great to see the steps that the landowners going to with this structure to make it an efficient and green addition to our community. So I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands. Oh, there is one.
I'm half reluctant and half excited to support this, and I appreciate the additional efforts that have been made here. I feel a little bit like it's so close in terms of where we need to get to it, and again, some of the changes here are fantastic. I think for me, I still have concerns about carbon monoxide when there's gas used for cooking inside, and just the need to move away from any dependence on that fossil infrastructure. And maybe this is more of a thing for me to bring up when we see how our zoning bylaw gets implemented, because I think if people are still putting it in their homes for cooking, we've missed the mark. But given this came before in 2019, there have been significant improvements. It's hard for me not to approve this. I just hope people will really think about the crisis we're facing, and we'd love to see the no fossil infrastructure in this at all. But recognizing where we are, I feel this is supportable.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is Development Variance Permit for 40725 Perth Drive. Just have to say it's really nice having our staff back in the room. So you just have to speak right into the mic.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Rich Prahalad, planner with the Community Planning Department. Tonight, I will be presenting DVP number 5, located at 40725 Perth Drive, which is requesting 1 variance. The subject property is located at 40725 Perth Drive and currently is developed with a single unit dwelling. The subject property is zoned RS1 and the OCP land use designation is residential neighborhood. The properties on the west side of Perth Drive are zoned RS1 and the properties on the east side are zoned RS2. The application seeks to permit the construction of a 50-meter square secondary suite above a new garage for the primary residence. A storage unit and a second-story deck will be provided for the secondary suite, as well as an office space for the primary residence. The application is seeking a variance to section 6.6 of the zoning bylaw. The proponent is requesting a reduction in the front yard setback from 7.62 meters to 6.25 meters. The location of the existing building meets all the required setbacks. Given the location of the existing building, the additions can only be built on the south side of the property.
Apologies, Mayor Elliott. It seems that the presentation itself hasn't been shared so that those on WebEx can't see the PowerPoint. So we just need a minute to adjust.
Mr. Prahalad, just start from describing the variance.
Okay, thanks. So the location of the existing building meets all the required setbacks. Given the location of the existing building, the additions can only be built on the south side of the property. Relocating the driveway would be unfeasible since it would require the removal of several trees and the filling in of the ditch in the front of the yard. Building up to the front setback would result in a smaller secondary suite and a very difficult turning radius given the new proposed porch. Currently, the proposed additions are flush with the back of the existing building. Pushing the building back to meet the setbacks creates an unbalanced addition to the home and result in the loss of a window. The proposed deck would provide for a covered outdoor space for the secondary suite. Staff are supportive of the variance request as the variance will facilitate the construction of a secondary suite, a covered balcony, and a storage space for the secondary suite, as well as a garage and office space for the primary residence. The covered deck area will provide the secondary suite with a covered outdoor space that can be enjoyed in all weather conditions. DVP number 5 was posted to the district's development showcase and a development sign was installed on the property. No request for a public information hearing was received and no public information meeting was held. Variance notices have been sent to residents within 100 meters of the property as per legislative requirements. No comments were received for this project. Staff recommend that the District of Squamish authorize the issuance of DVP number 5 as presented for the property located at 40725 Perth Drive, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute DVP number 5.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions before I go to the public? Go ahead, Councilor Herford.
Thank you. I appreciate in the report and in your presentation, you mentioned that I guess rerouting the driveway would be one of the solutions that might result in not having to provide this variance, but that would involve removal of trees. As any part of this, will there be any loss of any existing trees?
Through you, Mayor, no trees will be removed as part of this addition to the house.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Pettingill.
Is there anything in what is being agreed to here that requires this to be a suite? Or could this end up just being a larger house in a year if the suite just sort of gets absorbed into the house?
Through you, Mayor, based on the drawings that have been provided, there is no access from the primary residence into the secondary suite.
All right, so I will read my statement here again. Sorry for the folks who've already heard it. The proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard electronically, on the telephone, or from your computer, or in person from council chambers at Municipal Hall with respect to the proposed variances to the District of Squamish zoning bylaw, number 2200/2011. There is one proposed variance to the zoning bylaw, and the proposed variance is outlined in the staff report. In this case, it is varying the front setback from 7.62 meters to 6.25 meters. Please note that limited in-person participation is available from council chambers. If you are participating in person, please just raise your hand when it's time to speak. Details to participate on the phone or WebEx platform are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. They're also on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, please raise your hand if you're on the telephone by dialing *3 or on WebEx by opening the participant panel and by clicking on the hand icon. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt if you're on the telephone, or a dialog box if you are on WebEx. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood. Please note that speakers will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. And if you experience technical difficulties, please use the chat function to send the host a message if you're on the WebEx, or you can email hearing@squamish.ca.
Mayor Elliott, there's currently no speakers.
Is there anyone in council chambers that wishes to speak to the variance this evening? Seeing none, I will go back to council just to see if there's any additional clarifying questions that you need. And again, that's *3 on your phone, or in the participant panel, you click on the hand icon if you're on WebEx. All right. Seeing no speakers, council, there is a staff recommendation. That is Council French, you're moving that. Seconded by Councilor Herford. Go ahead, Council French.
Thanks, Chair. This type of development is, in my mind, gentle densification that helps to address the housing crisis we're experiencing. And in this particular case, the home is on a typical Garibaldi Highlands lot, lots of room for a secondary suite. And this home has mature hedges on front yard side and the southern side yard, creating appropriate privacy separation with the neighbor that will be most significantly impacted. This is a variance I support to provide the housing we've mentioned. Thanks.
Councilor Herford and Race.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this variance. I think this is a good creative solution to add this secondary suite to the property, and I'm sort of viewing it as even though it's attached to the house, as an accessory dwelling or a coach house, and happy to provide the variance to further the inventory of much needed suites in our various neighborhoods. So, and I'd also like to say that I appreciate the plan preserving the greenery around the existing properties. So this should have minimal impact on the character of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Councilor Race.
Thank you. And I'll also be supporting this motion. I think this is one of those variances that I think will once again have minimal impact because of vegetation and because it's the front yard setback as opposed to the side yard setback. Some weeks ago, we had a presentation and discussion in council regarding side yard setbacks, and one of the reasons for them is fireproofing between buildings. And so there's sometimes are issues with side yard setbacks and encroaching on them. But that's not the case here, where it's the front yard setback. It doesn't create that kind of risk. And I agree with my fellow councilors, what it does do to the neighborhood is gently densify it, which I think is a good thing in that neighborhood. We do need the housing, and this is an appropriate use of the variance process. Thank you.
Any other comments, Council? I'll be supporting this. When I read the package, it felt like the addition that responded to all of our needs out of the pandemic. So more housing, covered outdoor space, and a home office. So I just feel like we just pandemic proof this property. And that the front setback is a variance that's supportable. And now that we have rules in place around short-term rentals, we know this will be a secondary suite, which feels pretty good. We couldn't have said that a year ago. So I'm happy to support this variance. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks very much. All right, next up, we're already on to item 8A1, District of Squamish zoning bylaw amendment bylaw for CD 99 Hunter Place. This is number 2634/2018. And I believe Ms. Fletcher is joining us. Thanks. We're gonna have to have Harley for like interlude music soon, so that we can. All right, Ms. Fletcher, go ahead.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie Fletcher, planner with the District of Squamish, and tonight I'm here to present bylaw number 2634/2018 for consideration of first reading. The application for this rezoning was received in 2018. It was first reviewed by council at the January 14th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting. The applicant worked to significantly revise the application, and it was reviewed again by council at the October 12th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. Council generally endorsed the community amenity contribution offer, uses, and density for further consideration. If first reading is achieved today, the applicant will work to resolve outstanding issues noted at the committee meeting before returning for consideration at second reading. Subject lands are designated mixed employment in the official community. Mixed employment calls for creative, complementary, and flexible mix of employment generating uses. Residential only and retail only land uses are not supported. The maximum floor area ratio for mixed employment is 1.7. The application, if approved, would be subject to development permit areas 3, 6, and 2. The subject site is split zone, downtown commercial C4 and light industrial.
Ms. Fletcher, I'm going to have to ask you to move the mic a bit closer to you and maybe speak a bit louder. The people online are having a bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay, hopefully this is better. Projecting is not my strong point. The subject site is split zone C4, downtown commercial, and I1 light industrial. The applicant is proposing to rezone the subject site to a mixed use comprehensive development zone. The site plan includes 5 distinct buildings connected by a common courtyard at grade. Public access to the courtyard will be secured by statutory right-of-way as detailed in the bylaw requirements. The developer proposes to partially sink the parkade below grade to create a continuous pedestrian area extending from the public realm throughout the site. A loading lane is incorporated along the east side of the site. The proposed zoning has been split into 3 parcels to accommodate subdivision in the future, while still preserving the overall site layout. The 3 parcels have distinct parkades. Parkades 1 and 2 will eventually be connected to provide Parkade 1 the opportunity to access and exit from Hunter Place. The intention is that this connection will only benefit Parcel 1 to relieve pressure on the future Pemberton intersection, if pressure at that intersection exceeds what the traffic impact assessment predicts. Only traffic from Parcel 1 is proposed to access Pemberton Avenue, while Parcels 2 and 3 will access Hunter Place exclusively. Buildings are proposed to be upwards of 30 meters in height and 6 stories, though a height bonus is available for the office building to permit a 7th story. The additional height will help accommodate high ceilings and architectural roof details. These are some renderings of the proposed development. Form and character will be reviewed at development permit. This rezoning seeks to change the zoning on the I1 zone parcels, while the use and density on the C4 parcels largely remains unchanged in the new proposed CD zone. The proposed height is 30 meters and 6 stories, while the office building is permitted to go to 7 stories. Parking is anticipated to meet the bylaw. This application triggers the community amenity contribution policy. The applicant has proposed that CAC be calculated on the increase in density on the I1 zoned land only, which is consistent with the CAC policy. Given the size of the finished development, including the existing C4 zoned land, the applicant has increased their affordable housing contribution to 17.5% of the new gross floor area to be affordable units instead of the 10% that is typically required. The following items will be secured in a land development agreement. Acoustic requirements relating to rail noise, as well as other rail requirements as detailed by CN Rail. Electrification of all residential units, including hot water tanks. The number of childcare spaces, including the higher requirements of space per child than what is required. Design drawings of active transportation accommodation north of the site to the Buckley Avenue, Cleveland Avenue intersection. Language that holds the developer responsible for raising infrastructure along Pemberton Avenue. Language that secures full build out of the frontage along Hunter Place and Pemberton Avenue. Covenant securing the travel direction, access, and future maintenance of the north-south lane along the east side of the building. Approximately 40% of the courtyard to be activated with public access provided. The actual amount and actual level of activation to be determined at development permit to the district's satisfaction. This will also include covering all of the required Class B bicycle spaces. And finally, signalization of the rail crossing. At the previous committee meeting on October 12th, several items were discussed that staff would like to add further clarification to. Council asked if the applicant could go to step 4 for the commercial space. Staff reviewed the BC Energy step code and confirmed that there is no step 4 currently for commercial space in BC. Part 3 residential buildings cannot exceed step 4, while Part 3 commercial cannot exceed step 3. This building will meet the highest step available. Staff recommend that this application focus on green energy sources rather than increasing energy efficiency. Staff clarified the breakdown of affordable units with the applicant. The applicant will secure 20% of the units as 3-bedroom, 10% as 2-bedroom, 25% as 1-bedroom, and 45% as studio, the sizes of which align with the district's perpetual affordable housing policy that we'll review on the next slide. Council requested more Class B bike parking. Staff would like to highlight that the zone as drafted includes Class B bike parking in excess of the current zoning bylaw requirement. The bylaw normally requires 6 stalls overall for commercial space, while the revision requires 6 stalls per 1,000 square meters of employment space, resulting in 36 total Class B bicycle stalls for the employment space. This is consistent with the City of North Vancouver's requirement, which is the highest that staff could identify. Staff have also confirmed that the applicant that all required Class B stalls will be covered. Staff would also like to clarify that both liquor and cannabis use are proposed uses for this development. Liquor because it's stated and cannabis retail because it is included in use retail. However, we would like to clarify that this does not change the cannabis distancing requirements under section 4.37 of the zoning bylaw. Cannabis retail would still need to be farther than 300 meters from another cannabis store or from school use unless the applicant could successfully obtain a variance, which is consistent with district policy. Council also asked about moving the childcare to a different phase of development. Staff reviewed with the applicant, and while possible, childcare at an earlier phase would be drastically smaller than the oversized space that was secured on parcel 3. The difference in the required size of childcare space and the space that staff have secured can be seen on the slide for comparison. While moving the space between parcels is possible, it's also not necessarily practical. If by moving the childcare space to an earlier phase, it does reduce the developer's ability to accommodate existing leaseholders on site as future phases progress. And finally, we'd like to add a bit of clarification regarding the lane in just a moment. But first, this is a table breakdown from the perpetual affordable housing policy. It shows the units provided at the development and the expected size per unit as detailed in the policy. This slide shows a close-up of the lane along the east side of the property. The lane is a private 6-meter wide lane, the width of which complies with minimum fire access. The lane provides additional fire access and also provides a safe space for loading, garbage pickup, and servicing, so mechanical, electrical, that limits these activities from intrusion into the public realm or the public courtyard. The lane would only be one way from Pemberton, while 2-way travel would be permitted from Hunter to access limited parking adjacent to building 3.1. Staff would also like to provide more clarity around the road design that the neighboring property proposed and that staff have reviewed extensively. This is shown on the screen. The green line shows the approximate extent of land that the district would need to acquire to build the road at the district's expense. The red line is the property line between 1200 and 1100 Hunter Place, indicating that a portion of the Hunter Place development would need to be acquired by the district. 1200 Hunter Place is currently used by the Squamish Station Mall for employee parking. The design may be feasible, but it's also possible that the extent of land acquisition would exceed what is depicted here. When reviewing the proposal, staff noted that 1, the TIA, the previous version of which Council has reviewed at the January 14th, 2020 meeting, and the one currently in draft form that Council will review at second reading, but staff have also reviewed extensively. indicates that this development does not overburden either the Pemberton Bridge intersection or Cleveland-Buckley intersection. Despite this, staff had still worked through a backup solution with the applicant to ensure that parcel 1 traffic can move to Hunter Place exclusively if the traffic at the Pemberton Bridge intersection far exceeds the TIA's expectations. Both traffic impact assessments do indicate that the Cleveland-Buckley intersection is anticipated to be overburdened with or without this development. By directing traffic at the intersection without this bridge, the road would increase the burden on the Cleveland-Buckley intersection. Staff do not recommend closing the train crossing on Pemberton to pedestrian or cycling traffic, as it is the most direct route from the corridor trail to downtown. By creating an obstacle here, it may discourage active transportation use on the district's corridor trail and push some users back to the Cleveland Highway 99 crossing. The third-party review that staff completed has confirmed that there is sufficient room to build a functional intersection at the bridge landing. Partial justification for this road included the difficulty of relocating 3-phase power at the Pemberton intersection. The same obstacle would present itself here. Part of the concern from the neighbor was that backing up of trucks onto the tracks due to insufficient space. The district's consultants have confirmed that this will not occur as there is sufficient room to design a safe intersection. Council should be aware that if they do wish to pursue this road, the proposed development would be impacted as it would reduce their ability to provide parking based on the current design. Furthermore, because staff have determined that the development does not drive a need for this road, the development would not be responsible for the cost. If council decides to give first reading to bylaw number 2634 today, staff will work with the applicant to resolve outstanding council items and finalize the traffic impact assessment with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and the applicant prior to consideration of second reading. To inform the community per policy, the project was posted to the district's development showcase and 2 development signs have been posted at the site. No comments or requests for a public information meeting were received. An online public information meeting was held during the month of June 2020. An ad was published in the Squamish Sheep and notices were mailed to properties within 100 meters of the development. 4 comments were received. Staff notes the public information meeting showed the previous form of development. Staff recommend that council give bylaw number 2634 first reading and that the following items be addressed prior to consideration of second reading. And there are a few of them here. So that includes the step 4 for commercial space, liquor and cannabis use, childcare in phase 1, protecting tenants during phasing, clarification on unit types, adjacent property integration considerations, public amenity space clarity, green space within and around the site, viewscape renderings, exploring opportunities for more bike parking, reviewing vehicle parking, and active transportation and traffic considerations. Alternatively, if council does not want to give the bylaw first reading, they may refer it back to staff. And thank you. I'm going to take comments or questions.
Before you take your slides down, can you go back to the housing unit numbers?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So this is based on our average size in our potential affordable housing policy.
That is correct. Those are the size recommendations in the policy. We don't have a recommended unit mix in the policy, but the 20% of 3 bedrooms does align with our OCP policy.
Thank you. All right, council, questions for Ms. Fletcher. And Ms. Fletcher, you're just going to need to turn your mic off when we're talking and then turn it back on. Questions? Councilor French.
Thanks, Chair. Since our committee of the whole meeting, it occurred to me, last week we talked about loading bays, Class A and Class B bike parking, residential parking spaces, and commercial parking spaces. One parking detail that we didn't touch on is accessible parking spaces. The plan shows 11 accessible parking spots in the underground garage and no on-street accessible parking spaces. There's an opportunity here to add at least 1 accessible on-street parking spot at this location. So is this a detail to address at this point in the process, or is that something that would be addressed deeper in?
Through the mayor, certainly it's something that we can address at this stage in the process. Location of accessible stalls is something we typically do consider at development permit, but to ensure that it carries forward, we can secure that in the land development agreement.
Okay, I'm mostly just concerned that it's not lost. So if it's going to be picked up somewhere, great. And Chair, also similar in that I wanted to ensure that during the construction phase, there's no encroachment off-site. The situation that we had on 2nd Avenue where a construction crane was placed on the sidewalk caused temporary closure of some parking spots during construction of one of the buildings. This is a scenario that I would rather we didn't repeat. So is that a detail to focus on at this point? Or again, is it covered later?
Through the mayor, I might actually ask Mr. Kiyonaga to answer this question. It does pertain to the district's policies about construction.
Yeah, through the mayor, we would likely capture this at the servicing agreement / construction phase, but that is a concern that we are well aware of and we share that concern in the engineering department. It's something that we are pretty adamant about now. To no longer support or allow cranes or any kind of construction spill over onto the road. If that is required, which on a site like this, I believe they could probably do a good job of not using District Road or they'd use District Road as little as possible or at all or not at all. There are incentives with our fees and charges bylaw now for them to not take up district space. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, we'll do our best to keep them off the road. And I feel like on this one with cranes and whatnot, we'll have no trouble.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councilor Pettingill?
Just trying to wrap my head around the size of the units and the number of bedrooms. Is 925 square feet for a 3-bedroom the same as the non-affordable suite, same size, or are they smaller 3 bedrooms? And same for 2 bedrooms in one, but the 3 just jumped out at me.
Through the mayor, we haven't reviewed unit sizes yet for this development. Typically what we see is they are slightly larger, somewhere around 1,100 square feet. So they're comparable, but they are a bit smaller.
Councilor Herford?
Thank you. I'm curious about the traffic with the new bridge across the traffic impact here. I'm having a hard time visualizing because there's a big piece of infrastructure that's not there yet. So my concern kind of stems from having a train comes through in our nice New Pemberton bridge that allows no train interference to get into and out of downtown, has a bunch of people backed up to turn right to get into this property that's now blocked by the train. So I want to make sure that the order of operation is correct and we're not putting ourselves in a position where we need to build a wider bridge to allow sort of a deceleration / waiting lane for this right turn, or whatever other issue that we're not envisioning yet gets captured. So I don't want to, I'm concerned about when the detail of that starts to come forward and the impacts of that need to be weighed against this development that's driving the traffic, or the developments that are driving the traffic. So how, in sort of order of operation, how does that all sort of fit together? It's not feeling right, and I try not to make decisions based purely on the feel, but I'm not yet comfortable with this aspect of this project.
Through the mayor, Mr. Kiyonaga, I'm wondering if you wanted to take a stab at this one.
I absolutely do. Through the mayor, so yes, to answer your question, so the traffic impact analysis that we have done has shown minimal turning of that sort. So impact should be low in the event there is a train. It's not like I don't know what you're picturing, but if you're picturing like 30 vehicles backed up along the bridge, all trying to turn right, that's not really the loading we're going to anticipate, especially since it's only phase one that could be accessing Pemberton. The other kind of I guess belt and suspenders element that we're looking at right now, or that we have, I guess you could say we have support from the developer on, is one, to have access also to phase one from Hunter Place, and then also to have the ability to even close that access if required. So if that were to become a problem, we would have that opportunity so that we could actually remove that any real possibility of at least this development's residents or users having to turn off of the bridge. So I would definitely understand the concern. We also had concerns about people coming the other way and wanting to turn left onto Pemberton instead of going over the bridge. And so we have the TIA looking at all those elements, but we'll definitely flag, because it's still in draft. We'll definitely flag that concern and make sure that we're capturing that for when you actually see the traffic impact assessment.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm not necessarily concerned about that there'll be 30 vehicles backed up there waiting to turn, but that the one vehicle waiting to turn is going to back up the 300 that are flowing into. So that's more the direct concern there. And is a right in, right out an option here to sort of minimize the number of intersections? Is that appropriate for this?
I can't speak to whether that's appropriate at this point, but it's definitely something that we can take a look at. It is something we can control, essentially, if we felt we needed to.
Councillor Anderson.
Ms. Fletcher, I wonder if you could confirm what I believe you stated regarding the level of activation of the courtyard is still to be determined. Were you referring to, I take it, the cycling use of the courtyard pathway? Could you clarify what is still to be determined regarding the courtyard? Is that for active transportation, in particular cycling?
Through the mayor, when we refer to level of activation for the courtyard, we're referring to users of the courtyard, as well as types of public furnishings, if there was public art, where the green space will go, and the amount of green space and the amount of paved space. So that has not been determined, and we hope to have a better picture for council at second reading. We're working with the applicant right now. The final level staff recommendation would be to determine that at development permit, but we would like to provide some guidelines in the land development agreement and for council at second reading.
Thank you. That does help me. I do think that determining the active transportation strategy is something that we want to be clear about before we have a draft land development agreement in. I mentioned last time that what it looks like now, or potentially, is two multi-purpose active transportation paths side by side. One going on the west side of the building, the other one going to the courtyard. And I think that I would recommend, and I have in the past for other discussions on active transportation, is looking to the future needs and pedestrian movements from Waterfront Landing to and from the bridge, and also a potential, which has been discussed for a long time, for a transit hub or something of that nature adjacent to this hydro substation. It's just a concept, a scenario, but that there is a road buried under blackberry bushes on the west side of the tracks, and that may provide some kind of an option to consider looking down the road at the future, so that we don't end up with three active transportation multi-purpose paths all beside each other. So I think that these are long-term strategies for this area. It's been needed for a long time, but we should also look ahead at the pedestrian movements to and from the bridge, and whether that direct link reactivating, that is, the road was a truck road decommissioned about 20 years ago, and it was leased from BCR, from BC Rail. It's still there. It's just buried, you can't see it. So active transportation strategy, I would really like to see us have clarity and good exploration and discussion before we end up with the land development agreement where this definitely should be spelled out clearly. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Ms. What's your name? Councilor Race, go ahead.
Sign. Thank you. I was just curious, has the staff given any thought to the courtyard, the space between the buildings and on top of the parking garage, how public or accessible that might be to things like active transportation or just the general public walking through? And I guess I'm starting to play lawyer a little bit here, but that would typically be in these developments. It's on private property. It starts off on private property. It would be part of probably the common area of a strata corp or strata corps. And so what access the public might have across it, and whether it's even desirable to have bikes roaring through. And so it goes to the active transportation issue again, and how we ultimately design it. And I'm just wondering if staff has any thoughts about that, or has that been considered?
Through the mayor, thank you for that question. We have considered it. We've agreed with the developer that we will be placing a statutory right of way for public access on top of the courtyard for a certain amount of space to be determined. Right now, it's looking like about 40%. Of course, allowing for room for activation for private uses on that courtyard, which also gives us the ability to restrict users on it if we did not want bikes, for example, riding through it. So that consideration has been given. It would be a district decision about how that space gets used for the public portion of it.
Ms. Fletcher, I think the concept is that the daycare will be for the residents living in those buildings, but down the laneway is a drop-off area. There seem to be a few stalls there, but I think some of them are loading. And so just your thoughts on what planning is thinking about the arrival of parents and drop-off. And if there's just one spot, it's usually not enough. So yeah, just trying to understand that a little bit.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we haven't approved any drop-off locations. The architect we'd asked for a better rendering of the lane, and that's where they had placed a drop-off for that moment. It's something we'd like to review more and have an answer for second reading, and then have the final approval be for when the business came in for a business license. Because things change over time, not being able to anticipate the exact year that it would open, but having an idea of where it might work would be good. We'd likely be open to on-street spaces limited for a certain amount of time, or limiting the loading for a certain amount of time. But we'd really like to explore these options in more detail with the applicant and with our engineering team.
Thank you. Council Pettingill?
Yeah, thanks. One of my reasons for voting against this at the committee of the whole was a concern that there was a lot of undetermined pieces still, and I was actually sort of surprised. I thought a lot of those might be resolved before this came for first reading. And so I guess process-wise, is staff's thought that when this comes back at second reading, all of this feedback will be consolidated and it'll be a pretty much finished product? Or are we expecting there to be a lot more sort of discussion and possibly changes and so on, and maybe being sent back to staff at second reading?
Through the mayor, from a process perspective, why we're seeking first reading today is because what we heard was the general density uses and community amenity conservation policy, LDA, were all generally supported by council, and any changes that needed to happen can be done without making any changes to the bylaw. Which was a good consideration. It also gives the applicant a bit of certainty, considering they've been in the process for 3.5 years. We anticipate that we'll be able to address the outstanding items at second reading in a way that, again, that does not change the bylaw that's up for consideration.
So given your outline of the affordable housing suites, there's 26 of them, with our general size from the perpetual affordable housing policy, just over 19% of them would be 3 bedrooms. Are we still going to request 20% of the GFA or 20% of the units in the affordable? So we're saying in the overall development, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be more clear here. In the overall development, we want 20% of the units to be 3 bedroom. And then we talked about, well, how many of those might be affordable? And so now I'm trying to tease out how we might capture this at second reading. So there's going to be an overall number, and then making sure that some of those are captured in the affordable units.
Thank you for that question, through the mayor. That great question. I don't have a great answer, I don't think, but I'm going to do my best. So the way that bylaw is written, 20% of the gross floor area is required to be 3 bedrooms. We haven't specified that excludes the residential, affordable gross floor area. So presumably 20% of the affordable units would be 3 bedrooms, and then 20% of the leftover GFA would still be affordable units, if that makes sense. So I don't know what that breakdown is off the top of my head.
Thank you. I don't expect it for tonight, but I think it's second reading. I think we'll want that clarity about, protecting a variety of housing forms on the affordable side that families can also use, and then understanding what it looks like in the remainder of the GFA for 3 to 1 estimates. I know things can change between that and the actual DP, but that is something that's in our official community plan. It's important to us that we're building up suitable housing for families. So yeah, just getting more of that clarity as we move this forward. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions. So I do, just for clarity, because you answered this in your presentation, the first bullet to explore the feasibility of step code 4, we still need to capture that in this motion, given that that doesn't exist.
Through the mayor, that would be at council's direction. We were taking the motion from the previous committee meeting.
If this ends up getting moved, I was going to move to amend that piece. I wouldn't want to remove it. I don't know if it's appropriate to speak to that now. And I wasn't prepared to move the whole thing.
I don't see any more questions. So if you're going to put a motion on the floor.
I would wait until this is moved, I guess, or
You
I don't
have
want to
the
move
power to do that.
Pardon?
You have the power to do that. Okay, I don't see any more hands. I've tried to entice Councillor Pettingill into moving a motion, but he hasn't. So is there someone that would like to move a motion? Councillor Herford? Staff recommendation. Is there a secondary? Seconded by Councillor French. Comments? Councillor Pettingill.
I would like to move an amendment now. Well, I think if I moved something, I would have moved to refer back to staff. And I think that was the direction, so that's why I'm doing it this way. I would like in the items for consideration, I would like to replace the words BC Energy Step Code 4 with renewable green energy. Seconded, I'll speak to that.
I'll second that.
So I know often things are much clearer in my head than what comes out of my mouth, but I believe during the discussion, and it's pretty consistent for me, the concern is the energy source and the green energy, and step code is really rather secondary. It's great if there's a step code, but I think my focus and intent at the committee of the whole was for the commercial space first and foremost to be on green renewable energy. That's what I think the piece is that I would like to examine there.
Any other comments? Councillor Anderson on the amendment.
Specifically on the amendment, we have earlier today received a presentation from Planning Department regarding workload relating to processing large and increasingly complex building projects, and this one being a large one. And not only this developer, but other developers are giving us feedback about their efforts to try to meet council goals with greenhouse gas emissions and buildings. And it's not just energy efficiency. There's other layers to it. And I'm not going to support the amendment because I think that actually things are happening in the within the development community and with this developer in particular that we should be excited to hear about, but we haven't heard about yet. They have some proposals, is my understanding, to try to address our goals. And we're all in a learning curve. And step code 4 has resulted in some frustrations and maybe some misplaced emphases in the goals that we're all sharing. So I would like to, I guess my reservation is, in fact, I believe this developer has something to say about their goals and their strategy, and that we don't need to complicate it any further. I think that would be a preferable next step to learn more about their issues and strategies for carbon neutral building, setting that direction. So I won't be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Councilor Birch.
I too won't be supporting the amendment, and Councillor Anderson has used a phrase that rings well for me: complicate things further. I think that this amendment does exactly that, complicates things unnecessarily. Thank you.
I see other hands. I'm just going to speak to this. I am going to support this because what we're asking is to not just focus on building efficiency, but our overall goal is to reduce the amount of GHGs in any project that's coming before us. And currently, commercial is excluded from our elimination of fossil fuels in mixed-use buildings. And so all developers have energy consultants. And so if there is a potential trade-off here that makes this overall a better project from a GHG perspective, then why wouldn't we take some time between now and second reading to see if there's alternatives and get a better outcome? And so I don't think it's complicating. I think it gives developers an opportunity, because this is a rezoning, and so this is a CD zone. There's lots of flexibility here to negotiate what is the best outcome from a GHG perspective for this building that includes the residential and the commercial. So I think this is actually a really wise amendment, and allows for us to, entertain different options that might be frustrating developers that might want to achieve a lower step code overall, but completely eliminate fossil fuels from the building. So I don't see any harm in allowing that conversation to take place between now and second reading. Councilor Raistlin, Councilor Herford.
Thank you. Could you just repeat the amendment, please?
Go ahead.
So it would be in full: explore feasibility for density and employment space mix, green renewable energy for commercial space.
Thank you. So I'm going to support this. I think I would have a problem if we had put in BC Energy Code Step 4. That's specific, partly because it apparently doesn't exist yet. And so I think what the amendment does is leave it open to a variety of different options and solutions the council will consider when they come back to us at second reading. And presumably the developer is not going to propose something, and planning hopefully wouldn't propose something that's unrealistic. And we would then decide on whether or not we want to proceed on that basis. So I think what this does is open it up to something that's not as specific or prescriptive for a developer, while still trying to achieve some of our goals. So I will be supporting this amendment.
Councilor Herford.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the amendment. I think the explore feasibility is key here, and what's being proposed in the amendment is far more feasible than in the original motion, which was for something that doesn't exist. So I'm happy to support this amendment, and I do think that it's in the spirit of the initial motion. Actually, so I look forward to seeing what they bring back to us at second reading.
Thank you. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Councillor French opposes. Motion carries. Okay, on the main motion, any comments? Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Rice.
Thank you. I think that the architecture, building massing and layout, and thinking through of intended space uses has been worked on very thoughtfully, and be happy to see this proposal come forward for the public review. I also wish to note on the issues discussed last time and staff's responses in the present report regarding step 4 for commercial space. I agree with staff's conclusion. Regarding daycare in phase 1 portion of the development, that would be the southwest corner. I agree with staff's assessment that delaying delivery of the facility if it results in better quality space is to be recommended or considered. I wish, however, to comment further on the matter of engagement with the neighbor stakeholder. Staff note, as I quote from the report here, that engagement with the adjacent property owner occurred in May of 2020, and staff have investigated the neighbor's suggestions extensively. The owner's concerns followed by staff responses. We see a number of things recorded here. I believe this account, and I want to say this gently, and my recommendation is that the consultation is incomplete. Because this account is incomplete for both the concerns and regarding the responses given from staff. Regarding the turnaround, there's mention made of the adjacent property on encroaching on the road dedication. The actual more important encroachment is the MOTI gravel bank encroaching on district right of way. Now that's not a matter for rezoning here. There is, it's stated that the road connection proposed by the neighbors between Hunter and Pemberton was required to alleviate turning. It's not required for that. That's not the point. And the point, as I emphasized last time in bringing up the matter of their proposal, is the alternate access route to East Pemberton via Hunter Place is to address not increased traffic at Pemberton or alleviate turning out of the east end of Pemberton, but to address the opportunity and advantages of closing the rail crossing. That's not stated here. That's the number one purpose and intent of the neighbor stakeholders proposal. It's the costs and safety requirements and the train whistling issue as well. There's a date of May of 2020, a meeting took place. In fact, as I'm given to understand, it was July 9th, a brief meeting with Gary Buxton. Following that, there was that's 2020, an October 5 report, a second report paid for by the neighbor, submitted to staff, has had no comment to the neighbor. There's been no communication at all between staff and the neighbors since July 9th, 2020. So we've seen that there's reference to, in the last report on October 12th, an expert consultant report reviewing the neighbor's proposals. Well, the neighbor hasn't seen that, neither have we. Council may be interested in what that report has to say. The proposed road in Ms. Fletcher's slide on the west side of the building, well, the neighbor stakeholders are equally interested to discuss a collaborative solution on the east side. So nobody is, in addition, nobody, in contrary to the presentation this evening, is proposing closing the railway crossing for cycling and pedestrians. Nobody has ever proposed this, to my knowledge. So I reiterate my concern that the engagement with the neighbor stakeholders is still to be completed or pursued further. And I also wish to reiterate my concern that about the delivery, the timely delivery of the traffic impact assessment and that report. I think there's a number of issues for the future of the whole area there that are important to consider. I just wanted to then reiterate those two concerns. Otherwise, I'm happy with the recommendation as staff has proposed it. Engagement, traffic and active transportation are recorded there. that we want to hear more about them before second reading. And otherwise, I'm impressed with many aspects of this proposal. Would like to see it progress further, but with those two concerns stated. Thank you.
Authorize.
Thank you. Well, keeping in mind that this is first reading, my favorite comment for first reading, which I haven't had a chance to use for a while, is that it's in the ballpark. And so, in the mayor's lab, and she's heard this before, but it's not certain final. From what I recall, the proposal, which is a year ago now, this is a significant improvement. And for me, the improvements are around breaking up the massing, more open space between the buildings, to give better feel for people to be able to kind of see through the development, if you like, and get a sense of what's on the other side. And that to me is quite important. And any way that that can be maximized within reason without going to way too high, I think is worthwhile. I note the points that my fellow councillors and I raised at the committee of the whole, and I'm not going to repeat them all. But my general comment is that my main concern around not so much develop as how the development places what plans are. And I made the suggestion at the committee of the whole that we should consider steps to close that part of Pemberton Avenue. It is public realm. Do we really on road there for that little piece? Does that one parking garage have to have?
I think we've lost your mic there, Council Race, so just hold on a second.
You can hear me now? Okay. I think I out-talked my battery. So, which is a good thing for a senior. So, but I am concerned about how this fits in and some of the opportunities there. And while I don't want to put the onus on all of these on the developer because they're responsible principally for what's on their site, they do have to make this fit. And I think the district also has a role to play in this and make sure that there are opportunities here for more public realm, for example. Closing the rail crossing to vehicle traffic may be appropriate. Why can't everything go down 100 Place to service this development and the lands to the east? And so those are the types of things that I would like to see answered before second reading, because I think to just rezone this and sort of hope that everything else in this corner works out well, I don't think is the way I'd like to see this proceed. I'd like to get a better handle on where adjacent landowners are, what they really need, their future might be. We can't impose it on them, and how this development will sort of align with that. So apart from that, I am supporting the first reading. Thank you.
Other comments? Councilor Pettingill?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to support this. I think, I'm trying to read the room, and I'm thinking this is going to get majority support. And I think it is stronger with the amendment, and that's why I felt it was important to still make the amendment. But for me, there's a number of outstanding issues that I would agree with my colleague. I think for me, this is starting to get into the ballpark, but there are some significant things to work through, and I feel like we're going a bit too quickly through this process, and I'm concerned we'll end up with something we don't actually want, or we'll end up having to defeat this or send it back sort of much later rather than earlier. So that's my rationale. I recognize a number of the things we are concerned about aren't necessarily enshrined in the zoning, but they are sort of all tied together as reasons to do this particular zoning and the CACs and all of those pieces. I just want to highlight a couple of the remaining concerns. I think seeing the unit sizes, I look at a 3-bedroom and hearing those are smaller than the other 3 bedrooms, I'm sort of wondering if the affordable 3 bedrooms are actually 2 bedrooms. And so understanding the unit sizes and mix is going to be important. I can understand that, we looked at North Vancouver and other jurisdictions for the bike parking, but as I recall what the numbers were, works out to 1 bike parking spot for every 6 employees or every 7 employees, give or take. And so, given our goals and our strategic plan, that doesn't seem to be enough. I think I've spoken a few times, sort of acknowledge the traffic and parking challenges that other people are raising, and additional private parking, I think, just exacerbates that. And so until we have a solution to deal with that, I think we have to avoid more car-dependent development. And so those I think, there's the public space stuff, which is acknowledged in the resolution. So those are things that I think we can work through those. For me, trying to deal with all that at second reading is a bit much. And so that's why it's sort of a statement of let's put on the brakes.
Councilor French.
I'm happy with where this is at first reading. The staff that have worked on this and the proponent have done a great job of taking it from what we saw the very first time we looked at this to where it is now. A lot of work has been done, and I'm looking forward to see what comes back at second reading. Thank you.
Councilor Rupert.
Thank you. I having a bit of deja vu, because I think I spoke on the amendment, but on the whole piece here, I think this, by supporting at first reading, signals to the developer and staff what it is that we're working on. So there are, but it doesn't say that there's no outstanding questions. There's a lot of outstanding issues with this that I think have been well documented and captured in the motion, and I'm sure that there are solutions for them, and hopefully they're something that we can accept the outcomes of. And of course, we always have a few more readings to work our way through that. And given the responsiveness of the developer, and as evident with the evolution of the project since we last saw it, I'm looking forward to seeing what those solutions are at second reading, and having these issues resolved in a satisfactory way is clearly going to be what it's going to take to get past it. I think this just frames what it is that is being worked on and where that refinement is. So I will be supporting it at first reading, and we do have a high bar. We hope to uphold, and we will uphold at second reading. So there's lots of work to be done on this yet.
Any other comments? I'll just add a few of my own, and do want to thank my colleague for the amendment. I think it makes this stronger, even though he declined to support it at first reading. I do believe that the massing is much better than the first time we saw this, and I think with the additional viewscape studies, we'll have a better sense of what can be seen from where. I really like the increase in employment space here and the employment density that will arrive in this part of downtown. I'm curious, as we get to second reading, whether the rail crossing improvements will enable us to apply for whistle cessation. I'm not really concerned about the road that is proposed by the neighboring property. We'd have to buy that road, and we don't have money to buy roads for developers. So that doesn't really pique my interest, but I am really very interested in what comes back in the traffic studies, and just really understanding the concept of how this all fits together. But at this point, I don't see any showstoppers or feel that it limits other development on other properties. Again, I said earlier, I just want a better understanding of, the proponent said that by going with the 20% of GFA for 3 bedrooms will actually allow a better 3-bedroom space. And so I just want to understand that when we get to second reading and how that appears both in the affordable housing and how that sort of pans out for the development as a whole to make sure that we're building family supporting housing. The public versus private realm on the ground, I think several of us have mentioned that, is just really understanding what's protected for the use of the residents there for their own private enjoyment, and how is it not invaded by being part of this giant central courtyard. So I'm trying to understand, you know, if they want to have a little building block party, what are they using outside versus the beautiful public realm that's imagined for this development. I like that it is close to transit, it's close to services, and I think there's a lot going for it. And I think with these bullet points here and some of the comments of my colleagues tonight, we'll have a much more interesting project to look at second reading. I will call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Pettengill opposes. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. Mr. Kianaga. And we will take a 5-minute break here. So we'll be back at 8:45. Thank you. All right, we're moving right along. We're now on item 8B1. So these are bylaws related to our new wildfire DPA, and I am turning it over to Mr. Valeniskis to take us through the notice enforcement bylaw amendment number 2865 and the Squamish Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw amendment number 2866.
Thank you, Mayor. So in front of council, we don't have a presentation, just a report. There are 4 different offenses, all related to the wildfire landscape management bylaw, and they're going into the 2 different enforcement bylaws. These offenses are just a backstop. Essentially, our plan is to focus on education and retain this option as the last resort. So essentially, that's the gist of the report.
Short and sweet. Questions? I have a question. Why? So we're working really hard for people to not put these in, but then if they do, they get a pretty minor fine, all things considered, but they don't actually then have to take it out. Or can we find them every day until that cedar bush disappears?
That's a great question. I believe we could find them for every day the offense is occurring. I'm just thinking of other examples. You know, somebody parked a vehicle in an area where it's not permitted to be parked, and they continue to keep that there, you would be able to find them every day for it. Also, the fines may seem a little, you know, on the smaller side, but I think we're still open to revisiting that once we start implementing the bylaw. And if we see that it's not enough, we can always come back and review the rates.
Thanks for that. I asked the question because, you know, we're going to really focus on education for single-family homeowners, that sort of thing, and we wanted to use the enforcement on sort of larger developments to make sure they were doing the right thing. And so, larger developments, $250 is not a lot to pay. So, yeah, I thought I would see that, you know, that we would get the power to remove if people don't. But what I think you're suggesting is that we can just keep going with the fines until they see that it would be cheaper to remove. Councilor Race?
Yeah, and I don't want to give legal advice, but it might be that there has to be wording in there to the effect that every day constitutes a separate offense. And so you might check with legal counsel about that. But I agree with the mayor, something like that, or after a reasonable period of time, the fine repeats or something like that, so that they just can't go on and pay the fine once and then live happily ever after. I think would be quite appropriate. And taking a shrub out, the offending shrub out, is a bit drastic, except that this is a life safety issue. That's the reason we're doing this in the first place. So we might want those types of teeth in there.
Is there anyone from staff that can address those questions for us tonight? Because what's on the floor is 3 readings. It's not on the floor yet, but what's proposed is 3 readings. I'm a little bit nervous of doing 3 readings without having to be really clear about what exactly we can enforce, and can we drive removal, and can we fine multiple times? Ms. Arthurs.
So Councillor Race is correct. You have to have the language in there that allows you to write a ticket or every day of the offense. A bylaw business, the one that comes to mind for me is business license bylaw. That's the one where we typically will write fines for each day of the offense, but that's also permitted in the legislation to allow us to do that. So I think we actually do have to go away and double check that on this type of a bylaw that we can do a fine every day.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? Councilor Pettingill?
So I guess a process question, if we are interested in pursuing that, do we give second reading with that feedback, or do we just send this back to staff, or?
That's correct. Second reading, and then we can bring it back to the next meeting for third.
Okay, I'll move 2 readings of the notice enforcement bylaw number 2865 and ask staff to bring back to council some clarity on providing multiple fines or removal of the offending shrubbery. Seconded by Councilor Race. Any other comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. And same, I'll move 2 readings of the municipal ticket information of bylaw amendment 2866 2021. Seconded by Councilor Herford. Any comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Mr. Valensky. Although I don't think Adrian will be happy with you. Her fill-in didn't get it the 3 readings she was after. Thank you. All right, so we're on to item 8C. These are adoption motions, so that our zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw for 1257 Commercial Way, number 2752, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councilor Anderson, second by Councilor French. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish fees and charges bylaw. This is amendment bylaw for aligning the recreation fees with our new software system that's coming into play on November 1st. This is bylaw 2836 2021. Moved by Councilor Herford, second by Councilor Race. Any comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. So then next up, we're doing our permissive tax exemptions. Staff have given them all a title so that everyone's clear on which ones are which. And I recognize that the last one we have councillors in conflict with, so I'll give a moment for those councillors to declare their conflict on that one. So the first one is PTE bylaw number 2859 2021. This is a 1-year PTE for Helping Hands and Sea Sky Community Services. Moved by Councilor Pettingill, second by Councilor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. The second one is PTE bylaw number 2860 2021. This is a 3-year PTE for Nature's Trust and the Federation of Mountain Clubs. Moved by Councilor Herford, second by Councilor Pettingill. Any comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. PTE Bylaw number 2863, 2021. This is a 1-year PTE for Sea to Sky Montessori Society. Moved by Council French, seconded by Council Brace. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then the PTE bylaw 2867, 2021, a 1-year PTE for Squamish Senior Citizens Home Society. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Anderson.
Mayor Elliott, I must declare conflict on the next item of the Squamish Valley Golf and Country Club bylaw number 2861, as I am a curling club member. The curling club is an affiliate of the golf club.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. And same conflict. I am a member of the Squash Club, which is also part of the same tax paying entity.
Council, someone want to move PT bylaw 2861? Moved by Council Herford, second by Council French. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Council, we're on to item 9, under staff reports. Just one this evening, the Community Resiliency Investment Program Grant 2022. And is someone speaking to this?
I am, Mayor.
Great, Chief Stoner's here with us.
Fire Chief of Squamish Fire Rescue. Yeah, so I am here today to ask Council to approve the following resolution. That the District of Squamish supports submitting an application to the Union of British Columbia municipalities to the Community Resiliency Investment Grant for $150,000. Just before I keep going, we can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's wonderful. I want to start again. So just some background. We've been applying to this grant since 2019, and we have managed to complete a lot of work in that time. The wildfire development, or the interface development permit area, the consulting hours for that have come from this grant. We have done fuel prescriptions for 275 hectares, or in the area of 275 hectares in the area of District of Squamish. What else have we done? Lots of media campaigns throughout the course of the summer, wildfire prevention media campaigns. We've done community chipper days to help people remove fuels from their houses. We still have some grant funding to spend, and also quite a bit of work left to do. So we have a busy fall, winter ahead of us. What we are looking to do, we're going to do our first fuel treatments in the area of the Squamish Airport. The Brackendale Farmers Institute, we are going to do a Wild Smart community demonstration for us, so people can walk in and see what a fire smart forest looks like. And we have been working with the Brackendale Farmers Institute on that, and they're excited that we are going to keep their forest safe, and we will continue to work with them throughout the process. We're doing fuel prescription for Mel Park, and we're going to do a lot of work with homeowners developing neighborhood fire smart plans and home ignition plans for individual houses. So that's a rough look at what we've done and what is coming in the near future. One thing that we weren't able to accomplish that was on our plan was a fuel treatment for the Swift Creek area in Squamish and North Squamish by the lookouts. And the reason is the cost per hectare to treat that area was higher than the committee that oversees these grants was comfortable with. What are we using this grant funding for this summer? We want to simplify our program a lot. We have a lot of work left to do. So we want to continue with the fuel treatments of the municipal lands in the proximity of the airport. We want to continue fire smart homeowner assessments, community chipper programs, and we definitely want to continue with fire smart education and wildfire prevention media campaigns during the course of the summer. And that, just stress that this is a non-matching grant. The District of Squamish does not have to put any cash forward to meet the grant that is received from the UBCM or from the province, but we do put some time into it. Obviously, fire puts in some time, as does emergency management. Communications puts in quite a bit of time, as well as does operations with the community chipper days. And that is a very brief report, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councillor Anderson.
Fire Chief Stoner, I have a few questions. I'll start with the your report that the cost per hectare to treat an area near Swift Creek was too high. Of course, it's in all of our interests that we learn how to do these types of treatments effectively and cost effectively. That's a general issue. So could you describe briefly what the issues were and which part of Swift Creek adjacent to Midnight Way is very flat and should be easy terrain, but we also have some steep areas up the creek near the highway. If you might be able to just indicate what were those cost issues for Swift Creek area?
Yeah, it was the area near the highway, which, and again, I'll just qualify this that I am not a forester, so I rely a lot on our consultants' feedback, but it was the area near the highway, and just standing there, you can see that it is quite steep and quite rocky. And the challenge is that it's hard to do any work in there with machines, so it's handwork, which is quite expensive.
Thank you. My second question is, you mentioned the plan for Fire Smart Neighborhood Assessment and plan for Ballycliffe as well as Garibaldi Highlands. When you use the term Ballycliffe, I'm living adjacent in Hospital Hill area, and I know that people in Plateau Drive and adjacent to Smoke Plus Park would be interested to know whether they're encompassed by Ballycliffe in that proposal. What is the scope for the Ballycliffe neighborhood?
That would definitely be in the longer plan. What part of that neighborhood, Ballycliffe in general, as you say, it is a big place. We're getting to this year. I can't tell you for sure, but this is an ongoing program, and we will get to all the interface areas of Ballycliffe in time. And I'm sorry, I don't know what area of that neighborhood. We haven't developed that granular work plan yet for next year.
Thank you. My next question is regarding critical infrastructure for fuel treatment, spring or fall 2022. One of those might be a communications tower in the Quebec Hill area, which is within our community forest. So why I raise this is if there are critical infrastructure or treatments proposed for our community forest area, there may be some future partnerships, including some funding leveraging that could take place. I'll just put that to you in case the Quebec Hill Management Unit of the Community Forest is involved in that critical infrastructure area.
Thank you. Yeah, again, the list, I do know the list, but the challenge with that list is the only critical infrastructure that we could protect with that particular grant was on municipal land. So it was quite a limited list.
We broke up a bit there, Chief Stoner. I think what you said was the only critical infrastructure we can protect has to be on municipal land.
That's correct. With that grant, that particular grant.
Thank you. There may be potential conversations in future about community forest partnerships. Finally, Chief Stoner, I note that there's a reference to training for 4 local Fire Smart representatives. What would be the background of those candidates? Are they fire department volunteers? How does one recruit these Fire Smart representatives? Where do they come from within the community?
Well, we wait until people, it's both. We do have fire department members. We have members of our emergency program, and we are looking for community members as well. You don't need a background in forestry. Really what we are looking for is people with connections to the community.
Thank you very much, Fire Chief Stoner.
Anyone else? All right. So staff recommendation is that we support submitting an application to UBCM for the Community Resiliency Investment Grant for $150,000. Moved by Councilor Wright, seconded by Councilor French. Any comments? Every year we make our community a little bit safer and a little bit smarter, and really appreciate all the hard work that's going into this. Thank you, Chief Stoner.
Thank you.
Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to the consent agenda. If there's anything in the agenda which presents conflict of interest for a council member or anything you feel needs to be debated or voted on, this is your time to remove it from the consent agenda. Councillor Pettingill.
I wanted to pull letter 3C or C3, one of those two.
Councillor Anderson.
Wish to pull item number 6 from Blue regarding the short-term rental, please.
All right, seeing no others, someone move the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Pettingill. Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no late agenda items. We'll deal with the letters that you pulled after correspondence for action. So we're on 12A1, communication from Jay McBride regarding inclusive wheelchair parking, that this be referred to staff. Moved by Councillor French. I'll second that. Any comments? Go ahead, Councillor French.
The author of this letter inspired me to walk the blocks of Pemberton Avenue along 2nd and Cleveland to Winnipeg and Victoria. These are the precious sort of main downtown blocks, and there are very few accessible parking spaces in that grid. So I'm just looking forward to keeping accessible parking spaces on the radar as development of properties downtown, redevelopment, and just making sure that we're adding accessible parking spaces wherever we can. Thank you.
Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, communication from C. Lacton, Squamish Senior Center Society regarding the seniors Christmas banquet, that the correspondence be referred to staff. Moved by Councillor Pettingill. Seconded by Councillor Race. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I was wondering if this might also be referred to staff, or sorry, the steering committee. I guess when I was reading this, I was wondering, is this, given the changes to the grant process and what we're doing in rec services, is this programming rather than a grant thing? Because I think we're looking at some of these things a little bit differently in my mind. The other question I have is, we have Sikh and Indigenous and Jewish and Muslim and other seniors. And so how are we ensuring that as we facilitate seniors having celebration, how are we including all seniors in some way? And it's not to suggest people shouldn't be celebrating Christmas, but are we making sure that everyone is able to celebrate the holidays and so on that are important to them? And I thought the steering group might be a place where there are some useful.
Glenda, I can't see your hand. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. In answer to the first question, this is actually the operating budget considered a programming expense. So it does not need to be granted. The funds are there. In terms of your second question, I can't answer that other than to ask that you refer that back to staff for us to take to the steering committee. Or otherwise address as staff feels fit.
That report is coming to us on the 26th of October. And you can certainly ask a question. Thank you. So we'll leave it to your discussion to move motion or wait till that conversation.
Maybe I will just include it in this motion if I can, that this also be forwarded to the steering group.
All right. Someone want to second that? Councillor Herford, thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from Jay Ross about active and safe routes to school. Be referred to staff. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by me. Any comments? Any opposed? Motion carries. And then finally, several letters regarding pickleball noise, that these be referred to staff. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Pettingill, you pulled letter 3.
Yes, thank you. And so this is about the change of executive director at the Squamish Arts Council. Who's Catherine Coons. I'm not sure I've got her last name correct, but I've had the pleasure of working with the last three EDs, or previous three EDs at the Arts Council, and the Arts Council and Squamish has been incredibly lucky with just rock star EDs and quite strong boards at the Arts Council. And I think you can see that looking around Squamish and things like the Wind Festival and so on. Such a benefit to our community, and a heartfelt thank you to those executive directors. Just want to touch quickly Sydney Lyons, who preceded me. She is just started a master's in development with a scholarship at Columbia University. And just while I mentioned development, she focused on not-for-profit development. On a bit of an outlier in her class, she says. And Miss Amy Liebenberg, she is studying Indigenous Community Planning, a master's at UBC. So that's where she has gone on to and still has strong ties to our community. I think that just speaks to the caliber of people we've had in that role and how lucky we are. I got to work with Pat, the new ED, on the reconciliation commemoration event. And so she was just already eager, involved, and helping out our community in really fantastic ways. So I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Motion to receive. I'll second that. Any opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Anderson.
Mayor Elliott, I wish to move that the letter from Jean-Francois Flou of October 12th be referred to staff for information. And I'd be happy to speak to that if there's a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Herford. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, as we refine our short-term rental strategy and initiatives over time, I just thought that this is a letter that reflects on some key issues, license renewal fairness in costs, compliance and enforcement, and ongoing engagement. These are issues that are drawn attention to in this letter, which may be of interest to staff.
Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So we're on to item 13, recommendations from committee of the whole, that we receive the forestry engagement update as presented October 12th and direct staff to bring forward the marine zoning amendment bylaw for reconsideration of second hearing. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by? I'll second that. Any further comments on this topic? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that the District of Squamish, in collaboration with the Community Energy Association, implement a pilot project of a concierge service model for heat pumps called Pumping Up Savings in Heat, or PUSH, for the 2022 calendar year. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. That the District of Squamish authorize the CAO to sign the 2021 3-year Transit Expansion Initiatives letter from BC Transit. Moved by Councillor Pettengill, second by Councillor French. Any comments? Call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that council received the report from Community Planning and Infrastructure from October 12th regarding survey results and proposed plan for traffic calming and active transportation infrastructure improvements in the Highlands Way North Perth Drive area for information, and that staff consider 3 speed tables be added on Highlands Way North, option 1 in 2021. Moved by Councillor Herford, second by Councillor Anderson. Any comments? I'll call a question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, there are no committee minutes or reports. No in-camera announcements today. We've dealt with unscheduled public attendance. Open question period. Harley, is there anybody online? Nope. Councillor or staff announcements. This is rare. How Sound Forum is this Friday. Many of us are attending. It's a great opportunity to celebrate with our colleagues around the Sound now that the UN Biosphere Reserve has been designated. And I will be leading a conversation on Friday about how we might start to provide some seed funding for that organization. So I'm excited about that. Anything else, Council? I'm surprised, that's all. Okay. Good. So nothing else. Motion to terminate. Moved by Councilor Herford, second by Councilor Fritsch. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to our staff who supported us this evening. Thank you, Council.